I've been wanting to make this video for years, just almost 10 years, I think. Ever since developing a workflow that consolidates literally every image I've ever taken into one singular Lightroom catalog, I've been playing around more and more with what I can do with that metadata. Specifically, when you're in library mode, you can pull up metadata and sort by all kinds of different data points, from the lens, of course, that you're using, to the camera body, date, location, flash state, whether it's been edited or if it's in black and white versus color. So many different data points. But my favorite one to recommend to people is to sort by lenses and sort by focal length, particularly if you've never shot with a prime lens before, or maybe you did, but it felt like the wrong focal length for you, and you're just not really sure what prime focal length would work best for you. This is one of many big advantages to having one giant Lightroom catalog. Now, I'm lying a little bit. I actually have one Lightroom catalog for the actual current year that I'm working, and then I have a secondary catalog that absorbs every year's catalog at the end of the year. So I have one master giant catalog with 2 million photos in it, and right now it's got everything from 2011 through basically 2022. I just haven't taken the time to import 23's images yet. But what's amazing about that is that I can see across over 2 million images all of these data points in one glance. And it's really interesting to sort by any given zoom lens and see where there are peaks and valleys in the focal length ranges that I tend to gravitate toward. Again, if you're a newer photographer, you probably have a zoom lens and not a prime lens because you want a little more flexibility as you're figuring things out in your photography. But as time goes on, you're probably going to become a little more confident, and you want to maybe commit to something that's a little bit more restrictive but adds a lot of value, both in being able to be a little bit more focused, I think, which improves creativity, and having a lot more flexibility in terms of low light scenarios where, you know, a prime lens is normally going to have 1.2 or 1.4 aperture and let in a lot more light than a 2.8 or even an f2. But here's just one quick example. So I'm sorting by the Canon RF 28-70 f2.0 lens, and I've got 21,000 images from it. And you can see, just sorting and scrolling down by focal length, all the different values. Now, this you can kind of glance at and get a sense of where there are peaks and valleys, but one thing you can do to make it visually very apparent where you're at is just take a screenshot of maybe, let's see, there's no way to export this data other than by using a screenshot. So I'm going to screenshot focal length through 48 and then from 49 down. But given the power of ChatGPT, you can just say, plot the focal length values, upload the screenshots, and it'll do it. I had to tweak the results a little bit so that it was all in one graph, and then secondary tweaks so that everything was in sequential order. And boom, I've got everything plotted from this zoom range in 21,000 images across multiple years that I've been shooting. Now, with any zoom lens, you are very, very likely to concentrate on the extreme zoomed in and zoomed out focal length ranges. So this is, of course, 28 millimeters. So I've got over 6,000 or at least over 5,000 shots at 28 millimeter. And at 70, I've got, you know, close to 3,500. So I did one more chart where both of those were removed. So it was a little bit more apparent where I tend to gravitate toward. And there are huge peaks both at 50 millimeter and 35 millimeter, which is really interesting to me because I typically prefer shooting in prime lenses a 24 and a 50 millimeter, and I almost never shoot at 35. But I have always said if I could choose one focal length to shoot with an entire wedding and not have the option of two views at all, I would choose the 35 because it's the most flexible in terms of just being wide enough to still be able to get room shots or larger group shots. But also, if you step in, you can get detail shots, you can get portraits, and if you crop in camera, it kind of turns it into a 50 millimeter. So it doesn't surprise me at all that I have peaks both at the 35 and the 50. Little surprising to see so much. Another peak around 32 millimeter. That doesn't feel like something I would like, but it's hard to argue with the data data here, but across multiple focal lengths, you can see there's a huge concentration between everything between 35 and 50, with, I would say, more of a trend toward values in the 45 to 50 millimeter range overall. But that's just my visual interpretation. I'm going to do one more thing with ChatGPT and just ask it to tell me about the values. I'm literally telling it I'm trying to decide on a prime lens to purchase. Let's see what it comes back with. Okay, 35 and 45 have higher values, indicating they're commonly used. That is true, but nowhere near as many as 50. So I always take ChatGPT's analysis of things with a very giant grain of salt. Okay, 50 and 55, blah, 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 moderate, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so recommendations. Number one, it's recommending the 35 prime, probably because that is the #1 highest value. That's great. Number two is the 50, then the 45, then the 55. So if you kind of ignore the sequential order that it's ranking these values and focus on the fact that of the 4 prime lenses it's recommending, 3 of the 4 are in the 45 to 55 range. That tells me the 55 millimeter overall is probably what I personally am going to want to gravitate toward. And yeah, okay, it's just now it's just giving me a bunch of AI slop that I don't really need. But that's how I, back in like 2016, 17, really honed in on what prime lenses I wanted to put a lot of my money into based on actual data and not just going off of gut instinct or what another photographer recommended to me that I don't really know is going to work for me or not. Yeah, I have many zoom lenses I could jump into and look at even more data for, but I just wanted to make a really quick video to highlight the strengths of having so many photos in one concentrated data point. And I also would like to point out that Lightroom non-classic, which might as well be called Lightroom Cloud or Lightroom Mobile or something, because it's basically the mobile app in desktop form, it is not feature parity in this way. If you go to filter photos here, you have a much more limited range of what you can sort by. You can't even actually choose, that I could find, a lens. You can only sort by certain camera bodies. So that's kind of lame. Let me see if I select a camera body, if then it gives me the lens options. Nope, I don't see any. I'm sure I could type a lens up here, but then I'd have to remember the specific lens that I want. But that's not nearly as elegant as just having the full list of everything at a visual glance right in front of you, the way Lightroom Classic presents it. So hopefully they update the Lightroom Mobile Cloud app to have a much more robust visualization of your metadata. But as always, thank you so much for your attention. If you have other strategies or interesting talking points about having a methodology to determine a prime lens, if you've never shot with one before, I would love to hear it. Thanks as always for your attention, and I'll be back soon. Bye everyone.